it's kind of funny to me, folks, that over the past few weeks, the past few months, we've had people, if not for the past year, we've had people going back and forth on the redesigns in the comic. And yet, when they look at the cover for 257, that mixed reaction kind of, it's still there, but it decimates. So not decimates, but it disperses a little bit. In other words, it just starts to fade a little bit. And why? Well, because apparently somebody that's a good rendering CGI artist over at DeviantArt was finally given a big opportunity to do the CGI cover and Viant cover for 257. The Viant cover, of course, is similar to the cover for Sonic the Hedgehog Archives Volume 1. Well, the official cover, which is going to be on sale, is going to be the second, well, not the second, but the third spread out cover for the comic. In other words, it's going to be spread out like this. And it's a group shot of all the freedom fighters except for Amy, leaping right at you into action, if you know what I mean. And all rendered in CGI, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, but yet when fans see the CGI rendering, it's like things kind of calm down a little bit. It's like, oh wow, could this be a hint? But yet even after that, you still have the mixed reactions start back up. You know, I mean, I understand how a lot of people feel about the redesigns. I mean, I've spoken about it, and talked about it, written about it a lot. You know, just like anybody else. And the fact is, not everybody's going to be pleased by it. You know, but, you know, it's just the way things are right now. I mean, not a lot of people are going to be happy about how these redesigns are coming about. You know, it's almost like, oh, well, the redesign for this and that. It's like you got this mixed reaction where you have, it's like on one side, and I've mentioned this before, on one side you got people saying, hey, give it a chance. You know, it's pretty cool. These are great. Give it a chance. And you know what? And on this side, you have people saying that. And you also have them saying, look, we know some of you don't like what's going on, but guess what? Give it a chance. And there's a reason for this. The reason is to attract new viewers, attract new subscribers, new readers. And why? Because of the games and the story. But on the other hand, you have people going like, oh, you're terrible. Yeah, but, you know, it doesn't make any sense. You know, it's like, why do you take what is good, what was already good, and try to fix it when it doesn't need to be fixed? And then, of course, there are people like me that are middle and like, hey, you know, the kind of like in the middle, and we're like, yeah, we may have not liked how the story, the original story before this came to a close, or was concluded, but we do kind of are willing to give what has been dubbed as the reboot or soft retcon on soft reboot 4-part story arc a chance to kind of give us the answers that we seek. And so far, like I said before in response to K3, as I call them, it's potentially got the opportunity, Countdown to Chaos that is, to be a really good story and really surprise us. Now, why do fans have a problem with the redesign still, even after all this time? Even though it's been established, especially with 257 at the New York Comic Con this past weekend, why are fans still upset about it? It's real simple. You're basically taking characters that for 20 years fans have known as one way or another, and you're basically saying, screw the 20 years, let's just make them let's redesign them and make them look as generic as possible. That's how some fans look at it. They look at the fact that you're taking Rotor, Antoine, Sally, Bunny, and even Nicole, and and you're basically turning them into generic Segafied characters. When, according to a lot of fans, what defined them as good characters, was the fact. Hold on for a second, bird's starting up on me. Hold on, be right back. Sorry about that. But anyway, like I was saying, when fans look at this, they basically try to explain to those that are trying to say, hey, look, give it a chance. It's not as bad as you think. Basically there are those that are like, look, you're just taking away what made them special, what made them unique, what made them stand out. Stand out in a crowd. The fact that they didn't look like average Sega characters. The fact that they look like they belonged. Basically that they didn't look like they were Sega characters. That they looked different and unique. And that was the attraction point to it. And now the reason they're upset is because you're taking that uniqueness away, is because they feel that uniqueness has been taken away. And and all Archie, along with Ian Flynn and possibly the artist, and mostly Sega, have basically turned them into Segafied generic characters. And as much as I've come out and said, along with some other people, that even though the designs have changed, I don't think the character personalities are going to change that much. In fact, if there's anything, you might have a tweak here and there. In other words, like a little tweak here and there. I don't think the personalities are going to change as much. I don't think the personality is going to be altered that much. Like I said, you might have a tweak here and there, but that's it. A tiny tweak or something like that. Because Ian Flynn, whether you excuse me, almost sounded like Porky Pig there. But anyway, just because the characters look like, as some fans put it, generic Sega characters, it doesn't mean the personalities are going to change that much. Again, like I said, you have a tweak here and there, but it doesn't mean the personalities are going to change. It's like Ian Flynn has said, and I think even Paul Kaminsky has said this, whether you believe the two or not, the characters are still going to be the same characters you've known before. Just with redesigns. And the reason for the redesigns is to say, hey, even though this character is not in the games, imagine this character being in the games because they got a game design. And that's what they hope to get from the newer fans. Fans will be like, oh, this Sally character looks like she's in the... this Sally character looks like she belongs in the games, but I've never seen her in the games. Basically when you think about it, that's the main reason. The main reason is to get the newer fans that are more attracted because of the games involved with the comic and reading the comic, even if it means taking established characters which had a unique look, I'll give them that, and saying, hey, let's make them look like they belong in the games. And there you go. It's all about attracting new viewership and a new generation. Whether we like it or not, it's going to stay for a while. Now, are these redesigns going to be forever? No, nothing's forever. Nothing's really forever. A lot of fans have actually come out and speculated that after this whole huge arc, counting Countdown to Chaos and whatever comes next, after this whole huge storyline that Ian Flynn says CTC, Countdown to Chaos, is going to help lead into, is all said and done, and everything's fixed, and the timeline's back to normal. Some have speculated that the redesigns will go back to the original designs. That's what people are speculating. That this that they're only being done for right now, for this big, massive story that's coming up, big, massive chapter in the continuity that's coming up. That's why they're being done. And that could be true, but that's only speculation. But as of right now, the designs are here to stay, whether we like them or not. But we do know that besides the change to the character designs, there's other things that fans worry about. And I think, like I've said before, on video and in text, if you will, on some of the boards, I think one of the things fans are worried about the most, is not the personalities. Well, it is sort of the personalities, but like I said, I think those are going to stay the same, just with a tweak here and there. But what mostly fans are worried about the most, is what came before all this. In other words, all the events and everything that came before surrounding the Freedom Fighters, everything they were involved in that came before this, either being altered, changed, or never happening. One of the more talked about events that fans are worried about not happening, or being, altered, if not to the point that it never happened, is Antoine and Bunny's wedding. That's what they're worried about. They're worried that those two may still be like boyfriend and girlfriend, but they're not married. That's the whole point. That's the thing they worry about the most. If not, the relationship may never have happened. In other words, they'll be good friends and maybe be leading into it again, sort of a restart with the soft retcon. But the fact that what they're worried about is something like their romance, their relationship, their marriage would basically cease to exist. It's because of this. That's one of the things they're worried about. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's something that, even Ian Flynn should know this. It's something that was built from issue 47, and it was basically built through trial and errors, ups and downs, whatever, within the story. It built and culminated with the wedding in 174. So initially, this relationship was built up to its marriage status, ups and downs, trials and errors, for 127 issues. For 127 issues, it was built up and culminated after 127 issues with the marriage. And you don't just take, as some fans put it, a marriage that lasted up until about from 174, it lasted about trying to think, lasted about 72 issues. 62 issues actually. 62 issues plus 4 universe issues in the Tales arc, which makes it 68 issues altogether. You don't take a marriage that lasted almost 70 issues and throw it out the window because of a soft retcon. That's what fans are worried about. That's one of the things fans are worried about. One of the major things. Another thing that could change that fans might be okay with and may not be okay with is Fiona. We all know how fans feel about Fiona being turned bad for no unexplained, let's put it that way, no unexplained reason in their eyes. Yet, you take this soft retcon, and all of a sudden Fiona could either stay bad, could always have been bad, or she's back to being good, and never being bad at all, or never even consider it. But then again, she right now, as far as we know, is in another version of Mobius, which is Mobius, anti-Mobius, but then again, doesn't mean she's not affected because she's from the Prime Universe. And that's something that, like I said, was unexpectedly, or inexplicably, if you will, done, and yet could be done and could be changed again because of this. And there are some fans that have gotten into Fiona's anti-hero-like character. It'll be like, okay, now she's good again, or wait, she's always been bad. This is stuff that could be altered and changed, if you know what I mean. And then, of course, you have things that we were introduced to in issues 217 and 18, if you will, with the Baron Beauregard's Dark Age Legion, and of course you could have the Sandblast Freedom Fighters. You could have those two sides changing because of this. Those are things that a lot of fans have to look at. The changes, not just with the main characters, not just with the main cast, and all that, but also things like, let's say, the wedding. That could, Bunny and Antoine's wedding. That's one thing they have to worry about. But then again, you got to look at other things like Fiona's situation. You got to look at, like I said, the Sandblast Freedom Fighters, and the Baron Beauregard's Dark Age Legion. Those two can end up changing sides. Think about it. Baron Beauregard, if they still have him around, because he was created, obviously, by Ian Flynn, they could have his group be Freedom Fighters. Switch over to being Freedom Fighters, and you can have finally the Sandblast Freedom Fighters become Sandblast Dark Age Legion, or the Sandblast Egg Army, if you will. See, these are things fans have to look at, other changes. Some changes might be good. Some changes may not be good. Some changes might be controversial. And this might be some things happening in the near future that, you're looking at it and be like, well, wait a minute. That was started in fan fiction. That was started here in fan fiction, and now they're using it in stories? Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, there are things that people, they look at certain things in the comic and they say, oh, well, that was taken from what we did. They look at that, and some fans, some fans will be like, yeah, that was taken from what you did, wasn't it? And more along the lines, you'll have people defending what happened. Defending the fact that, oh, no, it's not really from what you did. It's more inspired by what you did, but it's more an original idea. An original idea that was inspired by what you did. The point is, there could be some things thrown in there as fan service. For example, fan service, there's two things that could happen involving a certain two-tailed individual. That's right, Miles Prower. Actually, three things could happen. Like I mentioned just moments ago, Fiona's situation. Fiona, her thing, whether she gets affected by this or not, could change to the point that she never turned bad. She's always been bad. She's always been part of the Freedom Fighters and all that. Her situation could change to the point that, let's say they go in a direction to make her good again, just out of nowhere, if you will, because of this retcon, soft retcon, if you will, that she could end up being about the same age as Tails. Or maybe, well, not the same age as Tails, but let's say she could develop some kind of crush on Tails even though he's younger. That would be a bit of fan service thrown in. Another bit of fan service would be Tails and Amy. Fans would be like, oh yeah, finally, Tails and Amy. Because a lot of people have said that Ian Flynn supports the Tails-Amy pairing. And what better opportunity do you have in the comics than this? But then again, you could also have another Tails pairing with Nicole. That's right. Lately, over the past few years, Tails and Nicole has become a huge shipping couple among the fandom. And why? Because the way I look at it, in my opinion, Tails is Sonic's little brother, his best buddy. Nicole's the same way to Nicole. Nicole's the same way to Sally, sort of, her little sister, best friend besides Bunny. So, of course, people would say, well, if Sonic ends up with Sally, it only makes sense that Tails should end up with Nicole. So who knows? That could happen. These are things that you got to look at. These are kind of things that possibly could be thrown in as fan service. As fan service. Think about it this way. Think about it this way. When they did Bunny and Antoine's wedding, Ian Flynn threw in a character. Ian Flynn, and I think whoever was the artist back then, Jamal Peppers or whoever, threw in a character not once but twice, but several times in Techco, from the Sonic Fleetway comic. Techno, if you will. Threw that character in for fan service. So fan service could be one of the big changes here as well. And again, don't be surprised by that. That Tails could finally get somebody, and it might be somebody you're expecting, and who knows. But again, these are things you got to look out for. These are things besides the redesigns to the characters, besides the possible tweaks, tiny tweaks, if you will, to personalities, which will be, like I say, very tiny, that you got to look out for. I mean, heck, you could even have Tails and Mina, for goodness sakes. Who knows? But the point is, we shouldn't be arguing just about the redesigns, folks. We shouldn't be arguing about those. We should be focusing more on what could come as a result of this whole entire situation after Countdown to Chaos, in the current story arc that comes afterwards and all that. We need to be more focused. We need to focus on that as well. We need to start thinking outside that redesigned box, if you know what I mean, of what could happen, of what could be. I mean, these are just things I'm throwing out there as possibilities. You know, you could have the Wolfpack Nation, Loop and the Wolfpack, they could still be around. And heck, you could have Loop be retconned as being a young teenage girl, for all we know. And she could fall in love with one of the freedom fighters. Like they'd say Rotor. Or whatever. But I don't think that'll happen. I think he might keep her the way she is, because you don't write her in and make her Grand Chief of the nation, of the Wolfpack Nation, for nothing. But you might see some alterations there. You want to talk about fan service, and again, these are things you got to pay attention to. And like I said, you could have the fan. You want to talk about fan service, and I want to talk. Let's talk about fan service again. Like I mentioned, you could have Tails finally get paired with somebody, if you want to. And you know what? You can also have fan service courtesy of other things. You can have Ian Flynn or whoever writing, like Tracy Yarlin or whoever. You can have them say, you know what? There's a person that did a story on one of these websites where one of the female freedom fighters got these powers to kind of stretch and change shape. Kind of have like these rubber-like powers to where they could change shape, stretch, even melt down into almost complete liquid, if you will, and reform. You know, you could have a story. You could have a fan service story done around that with one of the female characters, like say Bunny Rabbit or Sally or whoever, or even Loop or even Amy. You know, you can have things like that done. You know, you can have things like that done, and fans would like it. Fans would appreciate it. They would. They would appreciate it. But again, that all depends on the changes that could come as a result of the aftermath of Countdown to Chaos and the soft retcon and reboot. I know some of you are going to say, well, Brian, some of the things you're saying are kind of far-fetched. Not really. Not really. It's just that I'm trying to think outside the box of the redesigns. I'm trying to think of what could happen besides just redesigns to long-time characters, you know? That's what I'm trying to look at. I'm trying to think outside of just the redesign. Because when you think about it, there's more to what could happen, to the aftermath, to the after effects, than just it. And you also got to look at this as well. Look at how it's going to affect the characters storyline-wise. I've mentioned this before. How is it going to affect Sally? Let's say she's probably one of the only ones besides Sonic that can remember without the help of Nicole, because she was closest to the Genesis wave not once but twice. Let's say she remembers without the help of Nicole. How is it going to affect her? Or even if she has to have Nicole help her, how's it going to affect her? How's remembering the old world going to affect Bunny Rabbi? When she sees in flashbacks that she and Antoine were married, how's it going to affect them? Both her and Antoine. How's it going to affect her when she sees possibly in a flashback she was de-roboticized and she ran off and all that? How's this all going to affect storyline-wise for the characters? See, these are things you got to think. How's it going to affect Amy? I mean, basically, according to what we've read in 253, in this soft rebooted world, she's the Amy Rose. She's going to be portrayed as the Amy Rose that you could say, okay, Amy, you stay here and you help guard Sky Patrol with Rotor and Tails, while me and Sal go over here and go into this section of the world and check out this information there. She's being portrayed as the Amy Rose that you could tell her that, and she'd be like, you know what, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to go after Sonic. I'm going to stand by him. I'm going to go follow him no matter what. That's the way she's being portrayed. That's the way, obviously, she might be portrayed. Because that is closer to the games at times. Although if you look at Sonic Lost World, you might have a different change of tune on that. But the point is, how's it going to affect her when she's character-wise, when she sees that she's going to be an Amy Rose that constantly probably disobeys orders because she wants to be around Sonic 24/7? How's it going to affect her? You know? How's it going to affect her? You see, these are things you got to think of. These are other things people have to think of besides just the redesigns and how much they dislike or how much they enjoy the redesigns or how much they're all right with them. These are other things you got to think of. You know, think of the possibility of how it's going to affect Knuckles and the Chaotix. Are we going to see the return of Julie Sue? Are we going to see the return of his mom? These are things you got to think of. Will they return but have different looks and probably have a different name? Like, will Julie Sue be just Julie? And will Knuckles' mom have a different name or whatever? Will Linda, if she returns, will she be just Lynn? No one really knows. The fact of the matter is we got to think about other things that could be coming, other changes that could be coming because of this soft reboot and retcon in continuity. That's what we got to think of as fans. We can't just focus on the redesigns and whether we like them or we hate them or we're just okay with them and all that. Or whether we feel they've been from taking, or whether we feel they've changed them from being unique, different characters to being just generic Segafied characters. We got to think more about what other changes are going to happen, what other outcomes and after effects are going to be. And that's just the way I look at it. So whether you like the redesigns or not, that's up to you, but you got to think more about what I just mentioned, about other things outside of that. So let me know what you guys think down below.